Hello and a very warm welcome to today's call. We are talking about scripting in Therefore. It's really a big pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this exciting topic because scripting is always really interesting and extremely useful. This is a webinar, so I cannot see or hear you, so if you cough, sneeze, or pick your nose, I will never know. But I really do want to hear from you, so please use the Q&A to ask questions. I'll check the Q&A throughout the course of this webinar and do my best to answer any questions that you may have. I am here today with Roman, who is my friend and colleague in the digital engagement team. Together, we create the e-learning content and also do a lot of live trainings, Roman does. And so if you do have any technical questions that I cannot answer, Roman will probably be able to. So please don't be shy, ask away. We really do want to hear from you. It makes the whole session so much more fun and interesting to have that live interaction. Now, of course, because Roman and I create all of the e-learning content, I would be amiss to skip telling you about our brand new e-learning course, which is all about the new features in Therefore 2025. So please take the time, go through the course. It's completely free of charge and it's available for anyone who has an extranet account. So basically, if you are a Canon or a Canon partner, you can access our e-learning and take all of the courses that you want whenever you have the time and energy. This e-learning class on Therefore 2025 will take you probably less than an hour. Many people have gotten through it in just 30 minutes. And it will show you how to use, install, and configure all the new features in Therefore 2025. But of course, we're not here to talk about the new e-learning. We are here to talk about scripting. So what can you expect to get out of this webinar today? First, we'll quickly review some points about scripting that we made in the first scripting webinar. And then we'll go through examples and demos in 3 different components. We have 2 demos for scripting in eForms, creating a case using a scriptlet, and then scripting in REST calls. And together, I think these examples are really interesting. They're going to be applicable for both people who are interested in having conversations from a sales point of view, but also if you're more technical, they might give you some ideas on how you can use scripting when you're configuring solutions for your customers. So this webinar is actually the second in a mini-series all about scripting. Roman and I did our first webinar on scripting in December 2024, and it was such a success that we were requested to do more scripting, which is why we are here now. The first scripting webinar that we had done back in December was really targeted at complete beginners, people who didn't know what scripting was, people who were afraid to talk to customers because they thought it's too difficult and too complex. So if you're in that ballpark, you are maybe completely non-technical, you're not somebody who does scripting yourself, or maybe you're in a sales position, but you've heard people talk about scripting and you're like, what is that? That's the webinar to watch. I'm going to quickly summarize the most salient points that we made in the first webinar, just in case there's people in this webinar today who are complete newbies. I want to make sure that this webinar is interesting and applicable to as many different people as possible. So although the examples that we're showing are a little bit more complex, I do hope that everyone can benefit in one way or another, either just by getting ideas of what is possible in Therefore, or by actually getting technical instructions on the types of scripts that you can use and apply in your own configurations. So just to quickly summarize, what is scripting? Scripting is when you create a set of instructions for a computer to follow. In particular, in Therefore, we are creating instructions that can be used with components within Therefore to add specificity and features. So scripting enhances functionalities that already exist, but it cannot create new features. On the other hand, programming, which is what our development team does, is what our developers do when they create new capabilities. Scripting simply enhances and customizes them. So in other words, when you use one of these scripts that we show you, you are doing something that is completely intended by our development team. You will not hack into the Therefore system. You will not break the Therefore system. You can take these scripts and test them out perfectly, safely yourself. We have scripting available in our eForms, indexing profiles, certain workflow tasks where you want to have specificity, and then REST calls, which allow a type of integration to be created between Therefore and another third-party app. And so in sum, scripting is a really beneficial, really useful tool. And regardless if you are just having conversations, if you're in a more sales position, or if you're actually installing Therefore, it's really beneficial for you to have a basic understanding of the types of benefits that your customers can get by adding scripting, because it really increases the types of solutions that you can offer. So let's start now with eForms. And we're going to start with eForms here because it's probably one of the most easiest ways to add scripting, as you can really very easily just copy and paste existing scripts, and with just minor adaptations, you can make them work on your system. So eForms are electronic forms that can be accessed by people inside the company or outside the company. And you can create an eForm just using drag and drop. By adding scripting, you can really increase the functionality of the eForm. You can add, for example, summing of different forms. You can calculate certain parameters, and you can also add specificity in terms of when certain components are visible or invisible. The way that you add scripting in the eForm is, first of all, you need to know the name of the components that are going to be used. This is done under the API tab of that component, and then by using the property name. So in this example here, I've scrolled to the API tab in the design mode. I found the property name, and that's how you're going to reference the component within the script. Then when you scroll down within the design area, you can find an area to add JavaScript. It's going to be within the default values or the default or the calculated values section within the eForm. The most important thing, once again, is this API, the property name, because that's how the components are referred. So if you are, for example, using an AI to generate a script, you will need to use this property name to adapt the script so that it works on your specific eForm. So in general, AIs are extremely good at writing scripts if you give them the right prompt. The only thing that you will have to do is you will really have to adapt it and make sure that it's using the correct property names. And we now have a really interesting demo where we're showing how it can be used to calculate specific ages. So as I mentioned before, the eForms can really be adapted to many different uses with scripting. And we've shown you in the previous script, we've shown you how to calculate the number of vacation days and summing the value of goods on an order form. And now we're going to show you another really interesting example, which is calculating the age. And so in this example, we are using a JavaScript to calculate the precise age of a competitor in a triathlon. So you guys might not know this, but Roman is actually a triathlete. He's competed in many different triathlons over the couple of years, and he's really does great things. And when you're going into a triathlon, there's many different age groups, as you can see here. So the USA triathlon age group categories are, there's actually 15 different age groups. And the age is calculated based on the age that you have of the day of the competition. So there's a lot of very precise calculation involved. Now, the example that we're going to show you is showing how you can calculate the precise age and then the age group of a competitor. But of course, this can be applied to many other situations as well. For example, in an HR scenario, there might be certain benefits that employees get at a certain age. There might be a hotel check-in form where there's different price calculations depending on the age of the person who's staying. Children under 4, for example, might be free. Children up until the age of 12 are half price, and so forth and so on. So in this example, we're going to be using JavaScript to calculate the value of the ages and then assign them to the correct age group. Roman, would you like to talk about the example?
Yeah, sure. So as Jennifer said, here we have a registration form to attend the triathlon event. There are different age groups, and typically they are separated in 5 years increments. So basically here we have a simplified eForm. We would like to participate in triathlon in Hawaii, and based on the date of birth and event of the date, as you can see, the two other components will be basically automatically populated by using the script that will do this calculation. So here we have Jan Frodeno, one of the former world champions in triathlon, Ironman. And here now we can see the design side of it. So basically the most important thing is to know also the API values of the components, which will be set later on. But here, as Jennifer said, under the JavaScript sections, you can write the scripts. Because the space is too small, we can copy this script to the notepad and we can see the full script. So basically here we are using the function to calculate age and age groups with two parameters, date of birth and event date. And as you can see, we can firstly calculate the age by using the get full year function. Once we have also the age, then we can calculate the age group 5-year intervals. Of course, these intervals can be adjusted to any kind of logic. If you need on 3 years or 7 years, 10 years, this also can be done. And in the end, the result will be sent back to the value of the component. The most important thing maybe here, just to be mentioned, Jennifer also said that just to know the API values or property names of the components, in this case, date of birth and event of date. And nowadays, everyone can be like developer or programmer. We have artificial intelligence. You can use even, like ChatGPT or similar tools. And by providing some description, you can get, some code. Usually you can just copy that code, and with some modifications, you can use it in any areas where we are supporting that in our software, like here in the eForms, but we will see later we can do it in the same thing in the workflows and indexing profiles. So basically the same script can be used almost everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you, Roman. Let's see, any questions about this? We got one. Roman, recently I had put JavaScript inside the data grid data tab calculated value JavaScript, and then the whole data grid component disappeared in the designer view. The script is to add a new row based on REST API results obtained in the same eForm.
We'd have to
look at it.
That's more like an issue or something like that. We have to look it together, or either, with the pre-sales or post-sales guys, or you can send us also what exactly the issue is. But I don't know, I never experienced the same issue before, so we have to check it.
It might be like also permissions, maybe, if it's with the REST call and the whole thing disappeared. So yeah, these things are really hard to diagnose from a webinar, but it's cool that you're doing that. It sounds like a really fun solution, and yeah.
Yeah, maybe the script also was not completely correct. I don't know, but sometimes also we have some issues on our end, but we can see it together after.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much for your comment. What JavaScript calls and libraries can be used? What is the reference? This is from Hanu in Finland.
I don't know, like a specific version of the JavaScript that latest that we are using in, but all kind of libraries. You can just test it here, but we use a lot of external libraries, especially with the eForms, like to do the different things. And I don't know, like probably there is no like 100% answer to this question, what will work here, but just to be tested and see does it work or not. But we can check what is the latest JavaScript version that is supported generally in our software, because we change it from time to time.
Yeah. Then Patrick has a question when calling REST API asynchronously. How do you refresh data and the view? We actually have the next demonstration is, I think, touching on this a little bit.
Yeah, again, we have basically the script, even my colleague from pre-sales department, Vitor, has some examples where you can do it, like asynchronous calls and things like that to refresh the page immediately and see the changes and result. This can be done through the script. So if you need some examples, you can definitely also contact our pre-sales team, and they will share some examples that you can also apply in your scenarios. So the logic is basically similar always when you even if you are using the data grids with the rows and the columns. Basically, they are ready-made scripts where you can just modify it a little bit to to meet the scenario that you have with your columns and eForm fields.
Perfect. Thank you, Roman. Great. All right. So let's move on to the next eForm example that we have. And this one is multiple users working on an eForm. The use case is that an eForm should be filled out sequentially by multiple users. The idea is that one user will fill out a little bit here. The eForm is then sent to the next user who can fill up some more, and then so forth and so on until the eForm is complete. And then the eForm should be saved at the very end once it's been filled out by all the users. Now, usually eForms are filled out by one person, and then they're saved immediately to the therefore system. So this use case is actually quite different than what a typical eForm use case would be. How would you configure it? Well, most of you on the call, I think, will probably already know. The answer is to use URL parameters plus the send email task plus scripting for saving at the very end. Now, let me explain this for those of you who are new to the solution. I'll give you some background, and then I'll show you a very clean and very efficient way to make this work. So URL parameters can be used to pre-fill specific content on an eForm, or they can be used to dynamically populate an eForm with information from a category. Then the workflow will take the pre-filled content from user 1 and pass the eForm to the URL received by user 2. And a pre-filled URL will look like this. You'll have here is the base path for the eForm, where you have to embed the form number. The form number is something that you see when you open up an eForm. You'll see on the URL number 23. You can also see it when you open up the eForm from the user view in the edit path. Then you add a question mark. Then you add the name of the property, an equal sign, and then the content that you want to pre-fill. So this is an example here where we have the sample tenant.thereforeonline.com, client/form/embed, form number is 23. Then we have allow anonymous equals 1, which means that it can be accessed by people who don't sign into Therefore. Post action equals close, which means that the browser window will be closed. Then we have here the invoice date equals a macro, so the category index field from invoice date will be populated here. The provider name will be populated with the vendor name, and so forth and so on. So this is one way that we can have pre-filled content in a URL. But of course, if your eForm has very many fields, the URL gets extremely long and it's very easy to make errors. This was how, for a long time, I know a lot of people were using this solution, to have multiple users work on an eForm. However, we have a even cleaner and nicer solution. And Roman is now going to show you how to configure this. It's, of course, using the send email task, where you can see here, we can use this nice new interface that we have in the send email task. We can see the code, but what we're doing, you can see the link here, is not very long and complicated. We're actually using a reference table. We're using a category as a reference table to populate the content. And finally, we're also adding a script that doesn't actually save the content of the eForm until the entire thing is complete. So this is a really clean and nice solution, much better than what we were doing in the old days. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will have will find really good use cases for it. So Roman, I'm going to hand it off to you again.
Yeah.
And
so here, first, let's see the user experience.
Oops, sorry, I meant to, sorry, let's go. Unfortunately, the video starts. Let's just quickly fast forward. And got and there we go.
Yeah. So first of all, we will see user experience. Let's say that first user populate the eForms, maybe applicant for a new job. The eForm is submitted, and this will trigger a workflow that will send the email notification. Another user will click on the link, and the same eForm will be opened again with the populated data from the previous step. And now the user on the second step, maybe someone from HR department, can organize an interview. And once this is done, if we have a look what happens in the background, workflow history, we see that we are using also wait for document tasks to stop a process until the step on the eForm is finished. And here there is a third step. We see the document reference number. I will talk about that later on. This is a reference table and basically connector to this eForm that we can populate the eForm with the previously populated data. Yeah, now if you have a look at the history, again, this is the user experience. We reach the end, and if we open the eForm, what's the point of this demo? Because we are talking about the scripting, as Jennifer mentioned, we see the data are here, but the most important thing, we see the submitted eForm at the end with all 3 steps. So we use the script to achieve this, because as you know, anytime when you submit the eForm, basically the PDF file will be saved here. Of course, you can control it by using some property that we have on the eForm processing indexing profile. But if you don't want to save this document at every step, but only when the job is finished at the end of it, then you can use a script which will be explained in another video from design side of it.
Great,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you, Jennifer.
Any questions about this use case? I've got 2 more questions here. No way hide this in a post with John. All right, so I'm going to let Roman, you know what? I'm going to let you present the design side of the solution, and then we'll see if the questions are still relevant. All right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Very good. You ready? Ready,
Yeah,
and go.
Yeah. So here we see firstly the category with a couple of fields, and there is one field which is set to unique, because we would like to activate here auto append feature on the category based on this field. Once we've done this, as you know, the category also can be used as a reference table. And if you notice from the user side, we are using here the same category with doc number as a unique identifier. And this is like now on the eForm, as you know, among all the controls that we have, there is a control on the eForm called table lookup. And this table lookup field, in our case, we see several controls under the different steps, panels. And here we see the document reference field. It's a table lookup component. And then we see that we are using the therefore reference table multiple users filling eForms. That's our category. And then all the dependent fields that depend on this value are immediately populated when we open the eForm. The workflow help us to achieve the complete scenario. At the beginning of the process, as you can see, there is update index task, because when we save the eForm at that time, the document, therefore document number is generated, and we would like to update that field on our category, which is later on used as a reference table on the table lookup field. Then we have a send email task. Here, as you can see, we created the URL link. And as Jennifer also explained in her parts, we are providing the URL, embedding the eForm, and then as a parameters, we pass the therefore doc number and the number of the steps that we expect to show to the user. Also, we are using wait for document task to make sure that we will not continue with the process until the user really submits eForm again. And here we can see in the end on the eForm that we are assigning the JSON values that we are getting, but there is a script which is where is the focus here. You see include form PDF parameter, we set it to false, and then we say that we would like eForm to be included only at the last step, the step 3 in our case, and that property will become true. That's basically the whole logic. I don't know, like now, if this answered some of the questions or the questions are completely different. I don't know. Like,
let's take a look now, because we did get 5 questions. No way to hide this in a post with JSON. I guess this is in reference to the long. I'm guessing it's the long URL.
Mm-hmm.
I think this method is beneficial just because you don't have that extremely long URL, so it's less error prone. You're using a reference table, you're using the data is being saved to the category, which is then a reference table. And so it's just much cleaner, and it's saves you the work of having to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have seen in the body of the email, we can have like a text, I don't know, link to the eForm where we are hiding the whole URL. But probably what the place where we cannot hide it, maybe at the moment when you open the eForm in the browser, probably you will see the URL with the parameters, right? And the form number will be shown, right?
The next question is it possible to fill the data grid with this method?
Yes. I mean, definitely it should be. I mean, I used in some different scenarios, I was able to populate the grid even using the scripting with the REST calls. So that could be another way. So it would be possible, definitely, to populate even the grid with the data coming from therefore.
Can the eForms be submitted with an attachment, and then can the second person also view the attachment? I don't think so. Because you're only passing the data right now. You're not adding any...
I mean, attachment also, if you have attachment control on the eForm, definitely the files will be also saved into the category, like the data plus attachment. The only thing is here, what will happen, if you have multiple steps, maybe in that case, the script that we were showing here, where we are just saving the submitted eForm because we didn't have any document attached and control for it, then maybe you would just, keep it with every step. But if there is only one step, yes, definitely in that step also you will get all the attachments.
Cool. Can you provide more details concerning the waiting condition on the workflow? Wait for documents.
Yeah, I mean, wait for document task, as you have seen in the video. Yeah, maybe you can, I don't
scroll
know,
back.
Or I will open like a solution design. I don't know, like it's a bit, but the logic behind is that after there is a send email task, then we use the wait for document task. And in wait for document task, what we do, we use like, now we are going to see that probably if we go on the edit. we are waiting for a document to come into the same category, but what's the condition? The number, the step number, and the doc number. So the doc number is always the same on the table lookup field. We use it, right, as a unique value. And the step, maybe you noticed also on our eForm, we have like a component, hidden component for the steps. You know, at the beginning, there is a step 1. Once we pass this URL to the next user, then that step will become 2, and then we will update the value again on the therefore side and wait. So once we get another eForm submitted or values submitted into the therefore, it will also update the number of the step. And then once it becomes 2, then we can release the task. And then once it becomes 3, then and so on.
What we can do, we can share the XML files with you, and then you guys can also review them on your own.
Here you see the hidden control panel with the step 1. And basically, every time when we pass the URL, this will be increased for 1.
Okay.
And once you submit the then the wait task will be waiting for the information about the step. So once the eForm is submitted, indexing profile will also update the value on your category. There is also on the category field step. Once it is increased for 1, then the wait for document task will know, okay, we don't need to wait anymore because it's equal to in the second step, and etc.
Yeah. We got another really good comment from William. He says, and this is true, I've experienced this myself. Please note that when you paste the eForm URL containing the allow anonymous equals 1 parameters into the browser, the URL is rewritten and the allow anonymous parameter disappears. That's true for security. This can cause problems when the user adds a bookmark to the URL or copies the URL, as the next time that URL, the permanent URL doesn't have that allow anonymous equals 1. So it's really important that if you do want users to bookmark it, give them the URL that contains the allow anonymous equals 1 suffix, because that will allow them to create a bookmark that they can use. Don't have them just copy and paste the URL that is then in the browser, because it's converted to a different URL. So really good tip, William. Thank you for just alerting that to people. All right, we got some other questions as well, but we will move on to the next thing. And then if I still have time at the end of the webinar, we'll come back and answer some more questions. But you guys are awesome. I love all this engagement. You keep on asking questions. We're just going to make sure that we don't run out of time, okay? So let's move on to the next scenario, which is creating a case using scriptlet and scripting. So I'm involved in an email community of IM experts, and one of the questions that we received was they want to set up a referenced web service and therefore to retrieve customer data from an external ERP system. Is there a way to automatically create new cases in therefore when customers are synced over? Basically, they want the system to check during each sync if a customer case already exists for a given customer and only create a new one if it doesn't. So how can this be done? In our first webinar on scripting, we had already shown you that there is a scriptlet that's built into therefore to create a new case. Now we're going to show you how to further enhance that scenario, add specificity to only create a new case if it doesn't already exist. Roman, are you ready?
Yeah, yes, Jennifer, just before you start, in the previous webinar, of course, that's also available. You know, on the indexing profiles, sometimes when we need, exactly.
This is this
slide,
one here, yeah.
There is a case scriptlet that you can generate to help you basically to check if case already exists or not. And in a case there is no such a case, then the case firstly will be created, and then the documents and index values will be saved too. This is of course needed, especially for the automatic processing when you are using the indexing profiles with, I don't know, content connector usually, or document loader, and when you have a case where the categories belongs to some case definition. But here, let's see because Jennifer mentioned we have a reference web service, right? Now we can.
So now we'll show you the new scenario. All right,
Yeah.
and let's go.
Yeah, so here we see a 0 ERP system, and let's say here we have a list of the contacts. At the moment, if you have a look at this list, there are like 51 contacts in the list. And if you want to show these contacts on therefore side, on the case definition, here we created customers category. If you click find, it will find all these 51. You can see even on the top, there are 51 records that are immediately created here and synchronized. So how this actually can be done? Firstly, once again, user experience. Now, if I want to add a new contact on the 0, I would like automatically to synchronize this action on the therefore side and create exactly the same thing on the therefore side. So now if we have a look, we had 51 record before, now we have 52. We created like a new record for Canon. And now if we open the navigator, for instance, you see Canon is here in the list. And if you open the navigator, we already see that, our list now has 52 cases, and the one that we just recently created is also here in the list. How this is done? As you know, reference tables also supports two objects. Beside of the database table, there is a new reference web service. And basically, similarly to the creation of the REST call task, the configuration of it, you can have the REST request. So basically similar configuration dialog to the REST call task. Here we have a get method where we can get the list of these contacts from 0. We will not get into the details here, but just more or less to explain the concept here. And you can, of course, test this, see if the request works. And what we need here is like, in our case, we are just getting two values. We simplify the scenarios for like a contact ID and contact name. And here you can also define how often you would like this synchronization to be performed with the web service. And also you can run this manually. In the end, on the case level, if you open the case, we can see that we just added like two fields here by using the new reference web service object. And customer ID is like a primary key coming from the reference table that we just recently seen through the web service. And this is dependent field. And the magic happens, we need one field to be unique, like customer ID is the unique field. And then we can use the case synchronization option and say what we would like and how often this to be synchronized. Even the deleted values can be synchronized as well. With additional scripting on the reference web service, there is like also scripting editor and scripting area. You can even more polish the results in a way that you or your customer want to see in the end.
Perfect. Thank you, Roman. So, yeah, very, very useful. And it's a real life example. We're using 0, which is one of the popular ERP systems that we know. Yeah. Might be a limit for synchronization. Yeah, how often it can be done. I think there are limits because you
there are like 3 options for it. So how many, I don't know, once per day or at certain time or several times per day.
Exactly.
Even you can manually do it, start that. So it depends on.
Yeah.
Great. So we're good in the time. We have one more big example, and this is with workflow. And we're going to be talking specifically about REST calls. So we support REST, we will support scripting on all of these workflow tasks. But the one that we're going to talk about now specifically is the REST call
Within workflow, Roman showed you REST call with in-case synchronization, but of course it can be done with a workflow as well, which is a really great way to exchange data between therefore and a third-party system. We're not going to talk about REST calls in detail, but I do want to make you aware that we do have an e-learning course all about REST calls. So if you're not familiar with them, check out this course. The course is done for complete beginners. It really explains what are REST calls. It gives you hands-on examples with very, very simple REST calls at the beginning and takes you to more advanced examples at the end. So you don't need to be a technician. You don't need to have studied computer science. Really, anybody, I think, who works with computers can take this class and actually learn a lot. So it's not as scary and technical as you might think it is, especially if you're watching this webinar and you're not somebody who's involved in configuration. But we do have a really cool example. And this is an integration with Google Cloud Vision. So the idea is that Google Cloud Vision is a service provided by Google, which can recognize images and provide you information about those images. And it comes with a really good API through Google Vision. And in this example, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking pictures of driver licenses, and then through the Google Cloud, we're going to recognize the key data and then save it to therefore using a REST call. So the REST call is between therefore and Google Cloud Vision. And this example shows how you can use the REST call to integrate with third-party services. So Roman, we're going to take it away first with the user experience for the driver license recognition.
Thank you, Jennifer. So here we see like 6 documents that are already in the system. We are triggering this manually to show you, that we documents with no data, and now, to refresh, because if we save just them automatically, you wouldn't see the changes. These documents can come into the therefore in different ways. So you can use like a scanning solutions from our end. But in this particular case, we just saved 6 sample documents. You can see one of them. And we have like one field full text recognized, where the whole text that was extracted is in that text field. And then the separate values are under like a first name, driver license, date of birth. So what you are looking for. So this is like a simple user experience. Let's see now how this was configured. Jennifer also mentioned, so here we have a, first of all, category. One field is like a big text field where the full text will be recognized, and then with the regular expressions that will be used under the REST call task, we will get the individual values that we would like to present on our category. So this is a call REST task. As Jennifer mentioned, there is a Vision Google API. So they have a lot of documentation is available online. Here we're sending the file from therefore. This is most important thing. And also there are some values like a language and text detection property. So this works. This is a documentation. You can find a lot of interesting scenarios. Even you can use like handwritten documents can be tested as well, and the text could be recognized. We have also some examples for that. So you can investigate this a bit more, but the point here is on the script. Once we get the JSON file from Google Cloud Vision, we put that response in one big text field that you have seen on our category. And then there is a function, extract specific text with the regular expressions. What we exactly doing here, we are looking for the presence of the certain keywords, like on the document FN, like a first name, or LN, last name. And then we extract everything next to it. And then in the end, we just assign the values to the categories index fields. And basically, that's all.
Great. So
in general, what I would say is if you're interested in creating a REST call between therefore and a third-party website or service, first check out the documentation, because what is possible is going to really depend on that third party. Look at the documentation and see what you can do, because every REST call is going to be unique to the system that you're trying to get or send data to or from, right? And that kind of brings us to the last example, which I'm just going to talk through, because this is actually a own use case in our own system. So many of you, I hope all of you on the call, are familiar with this website. This is our extranet. This is where we have access to our e-learning, our demo request forms, lots of download content. And the extranet is only available for Canon and Canon partners. It's not a publicly available website. So this means that we have to be very careful about which accounts we create. And when people leave, we also have to remove their information, of course. And that's for security purposes, also to be compliant with regulations. For example, the GDPR has the right to erasure. So we also want to make sure that we're properly removing information. And what we did is our colleague Lisa and Clemens, they created a workflow with REST. So when someone leaves, for example, we are informed of their leaving, and we use REST calls to automatically disable and delete the accounts. Previously, many years ago, when we first started using the extranet and a third-party e-learning software, we were doing everything manually. But in recent years, the number of people who are involved with Therefore has increased, which is great. But it also means that it's no longer tenable for our small team to be doing this manual work. Not only was it extremely time-consuming, it is also just very boring, tedious work that detracts from the core responsibilities of the team. So we're really happy with this internal use case where we're using REST calls. It has saved us time, energy, and I just would like all of you guys to use this as an encouragement. Talk to your own customers, or even look at your own business processes. Ask your teams, what kind of manual work are they doing? Small things like this can make a huge impact to the quality and enjoyment of work for employees everywhere. Let's see if we have any more questions. We do. All right, I don't see any new questions. And so I'd just like to conclude this webinar then to say I encourage all of you, talk to your customers, don't be afraid to mention scripting, listen for needs of specificity, listen for needs when they are doing repeated work over and over again, such as deleting accounts, copying information from one ERP system to another. Anything like that is a good opportunity where you can use REST calls. And don't be shy, reach out to help either to the pre-sales team in particular to get more examples of scripting. And if you're interested in learning more about how scripting can be used within Therefore, check out our e-learning. We have scripting examples in all of these courses going from workflow 1 to 3, which is REST calls, eForms 1, eForms 2, electronic document import, masterclass, and even we have a little bit of scripting in there for 2025, where we show using the Swiss QR codes. And in sum, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the morning with us. I know everyone is extremely busy, so it's really meaningful to see that so many people have joined today to learn about scripting. If you guys have any questions or comments, please ask away. Send me an email to jennifer.schmidt@therefore.net or media@therefore.net, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'll see you in the next webinar. Roman, thank you so much for joining too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And Bye, guys.